What's happening, everybody? Hello and welcome back to Total Blast, where we discuss about everything Marvel and the MCU. She-Hulk's debut episode has just been released, and the reviews are pretty intriguing because different people have varying opinions on this masterpiece. Today, we will be talking about some of the important scenes in the film. And if this is your first time, please subscribe and enable the notification bell so you don't miss out on subsequent videos. It appears that She-Hulk might become a big part of the new Avengers. Mark Ruffalo, during interviews at the global premiere launch event for She-Hulk on Monday, August the 15th, actually stated that there wouldn't be a new Avengers team going further without She-Hulk, which is incredibly cool. Right now, we don't know about any plans for She-Hulk in the future, but I think she will join the new Avengers. Anyways, let's talk about the newly released episode because it has a lot of fantastic scenes. The first scene of the episode shows Jennifer Walters, a deputy district attorney for the district attorney's office, preparing for her closing arguments for a court hearing. She's accompanied by her best friend and paralegal, Nikki Ramos, who knows that she is She-Hulk. As a result, they leave her office and go to court, but she quickly enters her office again and speaks with us. She said, "Yeah, about that. I'm a Hulk, and I'm guessing you won't be able to focus on this lawyer show. So let me explain real quick." She immediately starts narrating how her transformation came about. As we continue, a scene of her and her cousin, Bruce Banner, traveling by car appears. Here, Jen is talking about all the information and research that she has gathered that led her to think that Steve Rogers was a virgin. She had a car crash after a spaceship appeared in front of them. The MCU actually adjusted Jennifer Walters' origin story at this point. Jennifer Walters exits the car following the collision, but she cuts her arm on a twisted piece of metal. She's bleeding from a large cut on her arm. Bruce Banner is bleeding too as well when she pulls him out of the car, and part of his blood actually gets into Jennifer's hand wound, mixing their blood together and giving her what he claims was a little dose of gamma radiation, causing her to turn into She-Hulk. She runs away as she's trying to turn and passes out. She wakes up near a pub and enters it, probably trying to find help, which she did by using a stranger's phone to call Bruce. This is actually where we see her turn into She-Hulk again, as some guys who came out of the pub tried harassing her while she was outside waiting for Bruce. Bruce fortunately saves the day as he holds her down immediately before she becomes distracted. This is cool origin tale for the MCU, but in the comics, it's slightly different. In the comics, a man named Nicholas Trask hired assassins to kill Jennifer Walters, who was already a lawyer and was defending a client who was in conflict with him. Fortunately, Bruce Banner was paying a visit to her that day. Jennifer is ultimately shot by the assailants, but Bruce Banner is there to save her and take her to the hospital, where it is determined that she requires a blood transfusion. So, in order to save her life, some of his blood was injected into her, turning her into She-Hulk. There are differences between the vehicle accident and the attempt on her life, but ultimately, the origin is about her obtaining Bruce's blood and becoming She-Hulk. We cut to Bruce Banner's home in Mexico. Jen wakes up and goes in search of Bruce. In doing so, she finds what appears to be an old Iron Man helmet. Bruce frequently brings up Tony Stark, and this says a lot about their friendship. Jen finally sees Bruce Banner in his laboratory in Hulk form, or what he calls Smart Hulk. She is actually surprised that she is now a Hulk and tells Bruce Banner to heal her or probably give her the device that stops him from turning to the Hulk. Here, Bruce explains to her that the device is a prototype and he can't make one for her. Yeah. We also found out that Hulk used Jennifer's blood to fix his broken arm, proving that their genes and blood are somewhat different. As Bruce Banner was trying to find out what makes Jen turn, he found out that although they share the same components that enable them to produce gamma radiation, it appears that their genes are somewhat different because, unlike Bruce Banner, when Jen transforms into She-Hulk, she's still in charge. Hulk and Banner are completely different persons. This surprises Bruce and rather makes him a bit jealous. Bruce tells Jennifer that she can't live a normal life anymore because she's now a different person. He advises her, saying that her life will change, but Jennifer insists that she'll still have a normal life as a lawyer and it's what she's always wanted. In essence, Bruce is telling her that she cannot return to that life because she must learn to control her anger. And also, she has to stay with Bruce so that he may conduct some tests to determine exactly what triggers her to transform into She-Hulk, because her turning into the Hulk puts the lives of many people in danger. However, after conducting a number of tests, they realize that Jen has control over how she turns to She-Hulk. She can transform into the Hulk whenever she wants to, and she can also turn back. So therefore, she does not pose a threat to people. Jennifer asked Hulk how he returns to his normal self, Bruce Banner, when he's in the Hulk form. Bruce replies, usually I'd fall out of a jet or get knocked out by a robot and I'd wake up as Banner. He continues and he said he can also turn by Natasha singing him a lullaby. He claims he doesn't understand how the lullaby would transform him back to Bruce Banner. He even mentioned that he was a Hulk for 2 years, which totally freaked Jennifer out. We cut to the scene where Bruce Banner appears to be teaching Jennifer how to become the Hulk, and as they become increasingly competitive with one another, Bruce decides to explain to her that being Hulk also has some benefits. The benefit is that it can get drunk and their body metabolizes the alcohol quickly. A scene where both of them have finished a lot of drinks appears. This really serves as a callback to Steve Rogers' Captain America from the Captain America movie, in which he attempts to get drunk after Bucky dies, but is stopped by Agent Peggy Carter, who informs him that his metabolism is essentially 4 times faster than that of a typical human being. In this scene, Jennifer asked Bruce if he built the bar all by himself, and Bruce said he did that with some help from Tony Stark, although Tony mostly drank and didn't do much. When he mentions Tony, he is somewhat emotional, and we immediately see a carved initial of both him and Tony on the table. It's written TS and BB. The following morning, Jennifer wakes up and discovers that she's actually experiencing a hangover when she transforms back into a human form. Then she goes to a meditation session during which Jennifer asks Hulk when she can leave and go back to her life as a lawyer. Hulk tries to explain to her that she's now a superhero and will have to save the world. But Jennifer, who isn't buying any of that, tells Bruce that she has no intentions of becoming a superhero, that she only wants to return to her life as a lawyer, which she has sacrificed a lot for. Hulk tries to convince Jennifer that she needs to learn to control her anger so that she doesn't pose a threat to the public. Jennifer responds that she already does that all the time. She went further to explain that when men annoy her, especially at work, she controls her anger perfectly well. As she's explaining this to Bruce, she appears to become enraged and transforms into She-Hulk. Bruce said that she doesn't control her rage, and she replied and said that she did that on purpose and immediately turned back to her normal self. Bruce insists that Jennifer will be a superhero and help save the world, but Jennifer was still trying to tell Bruce that she wasn't interested in becoming anything other than a lawyer, and she said some mean things to Bruce. As she tries to leave, Bruce stops her again and they both start fighting. In this fighting scene, we notice that Bruce's thunderclap is different and stronger than Jen's. Bruce's thunderclap threw Jennifer off balance. Jennifer's thunderclap isn't that strong, but it's quite deafening. We see here that Jennifer's thunderclap affected Bruce Banner's hearing. They continued fighting until they both destroyed the bar and Bruce stopped. That bar meant a lot to him. It represents his friendship with Tony, who is unfortunately no more. While they were fixing the bar, Bruce tells Jennifer that she's free to leave if she wants to. Here, Jennifer turns to the audience and says he doesn't mean that. Bruce assures Jennifer that the door is always open for her to return if she ever wants to. The two of them ultimately fixed their differences. We cut to the present, where we see Jennifer as we saw her in the beginning of the film. Where she's narrating the movie, she informs the audience that she's doing pretty well and living a normal life. She concludes by saying, "Now, let's go win this case." We then see Jennifer in court, where Tatiana unexpectedly entered just as she's about to ready to make a closing argument. Jennifer didn't want to transform to She-Hulk, but her best friend and fellow paralegal Nikki advised her that it was time to save the day. Ultimately, she knows it's the right thing to do. She didn't want the entire world to know that she's now She-Hulk. Everyone is surprised when she transforms into She-Hulk, including Tatiana, who queries who the hell she is. Tatiana attacks Jennifer and the jury, but Jennifer defeats her. The first episode closes with Jennifer transforming back to her normal self and wants to give a closing argument. This right here might be the indication that Jennifer might function both as She-Hulk and a lawyer, which is her passion. I'm really excited to hear all your thoughts and opinions, guys. What do you think about the first episode of She-Hulk? What do you think about the origin story? Do you think Jennifer will handle both being a lawyer and She-Hulk well? Or would she eventually live a normal life to become a superhero? Please, don't forget to like the video and share your thoughts and opinions in the comment section below. Subscribe and turn the post notification on so you don't miss out on any of our latest Marvel news. Thank you so much for watching, and as always, I hope to see you in the next one.